Hi, so today what we're going to learn about is what characterization means and how an author uses characterization in a story to bring life to a character throughout the story. So as you look in your PowerPoint, you're going to see the same things that we're discussing here, but we're going to go more in depth as to what you're going to do as you read the story, The Slaughter to the Lamb. So the first thing I want you to think about is what is a character and why is a character important to a story? So a character is a person or animal in a story, poem, or play. Every character has her own personality, which an author uses to assist in forming the plot of the story. A character is developed by many different character traits that are very unique to the character. For example, think of your own self as a character and what develops you as an individual character. All of these things that you might list are different character traits or descriptive qualities of you that are unique to you. So we have a character and we have character traits. So what I want you to do is think of some things that define you and how those are character traits right now. So that's what you're going to be doing right now. So we can get into what character traits are and how different characters have character traits. So right now, think about that for the next 10 seconds. So now that you've had a list of character traits, some that you might have listed are funny, charismatic, approachable, friendly, smart, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, brown-haired. These are all physical appearances or different ways that you look, act, say, or think. We're going to get into more of that. But how an author reveals how a character develops is called characterization. So characterization is the process of revealing the personality of a character in a story. Again, what's this called? This is called characterization, the process of developing a character and the way in which an author chooses to reveal it throughout a story. So of course you're saying now, there might be more than one character in a story. You're correct. There's not always, but there usually is more than one character in a story, and how the author develops these characters throughout the story simultaneously next to each other is the process of characterization for each character. Some characters may be developed more fully than others, but each character will have a process of characterization throughout the story. So that covers key point number 1 for you, and now we're going to move on to key point 2. So key point 2 is that we have to use our own judgment as readers to decide what a character is like based on the evidence in a text. So, for example, a text might say one thing, and even though a text might say something that leads us to believe something about that character, we have to use our own analysis skills and our own interpretation to think about what the author means by that um, piece of text. So, for example, if a character continuously lies to other characters in text, we can infer that she is dishonest based on her words or dialogue. But we have to infer this or predict this or analyze this from what the author has written in the text. All of this is characterization. So though the author is developing this character, it's up to us as the reader to interpret it. Another example that you'll see on your PowerPoint is if a character volunteers her time to helping the homeless, we can infer that she is compassionate and generous from this action. So again, think about character traits. Compassionate and generous would be what we can infer to be character traits of that character from the action. So the author gives us clues as to how he or she wants these characters to be characterized, but it's our job as readers to really put on what we think the characterization is. So now we've covered key point 2. So now you have character traits. Every character has character traits. Characterization is the process by which an author uses to develop characters. And then you have the process of an author gives us text. We read the text as readers, but then we have to use our own personal judgments, beliefs, and values to interpret and analyze that text and really get into how we feel the characters are developing, because each reader will develop the characters differently in his or her own mind. Now, key point number 3 is when characters interact with one another, it creates conflict. Conflict, as you probably know from previous lessons, is when two characters or situations, or more than two, merge together or confront each other or cause tension. So there are several different types of conflict, but today we'll focus on the conflict as a struggle or clash between opposing characters. Conflict can directly affect character development. So the question I'm posing to you is, how can conflict affect character development? Think about that right now and jot down some thoughts as to how you think conflict can directly affect character development. So that's what you're doing right now. Okay, so some ideas for you. Character development is characterization, which is the way a character develops or the process through which a character develops throughout a story. Now, if a character gets into a conflict with another character, That will give us ideas, interactions from other characters as to what that character is doing, thinking, saying, acting, and that gives us clues to that characterization. So that's a way that conflict can directly affect character development. So we're going to get into this next when we talk about how we, in this lesson, are going to look at characterization. So what we're going to use today is a method called STEAL, which is an acronym. STEAL stands for S, which is says, T, which is thinks, E is effects on others, A is actions, and L is looks. For today, we're only going to focus on the S, T, A, L parts. We're going to leave E, effects on others, for our lesson that's going to happen later on. So, what we're going to look at is says. What does a character say? So this again is what the author has in the text, what the author puts the character says. We're going to look at what that text says, and then what this shows about the characterization of that character. T, thinks. What's the character thinking? Again, this is in the text, but we have to use our own interpretation, our own analysis to figure out what this shows about characterization. A is acts. What does the character do? How does the character act? Is the character getting into conflicts with others? What's the character doing all throughout this story? That is what we're going to put in acts, what's actually in the text, and then we're going to use our own analysis and interpretation again to figure out what this says about characterization, what traits are brought out, what can we figure out about the character. And then we get L. L is looks, the most basic of characterization. Character to describe by their physical appearance. Now, this might not tell us much about their actual personality traits, but looks, if someone's described as a tall, short, blonde-haired girl, then those tall, short, blonde hair are in the text, and we'll use our own analysis to figure out what that could possibly say about their characterization. But using this acronym, STEAL, minus the E for today, just STAL, will allow us to really sift through different characterization patterns and methods in a short text that we're going to read and really chunk out from what the author has said our own analysis, our own inferences about what that means about characterization. So you'll see on the PowerPoint the graphic organizer we're going to use, and on the left you have the different qualities that we're looking for. Then it has what are we searching for in the text. I want you to fill out looks, acts, says, things. What are we searching for in the text to look for looks, for acts, for says, for things? So, for example, for looks, what are you going to write? You're probably going to write, we're looking for descriptive physical qualities of the character. Acts, conflicts, different actions the character is doing. Says, dialogue, ways the character is involving with other characters. Things, the internal thoughts of the character, what the author puts down the character might not be saying to someone else. And then what does it say about characterization? Right now I want you to take some time to figure out what looks say about characterization, what actions say, what characters say, and what characters think, what that tells us about characterization, because we are going to come back to this graphic organizer, and if we have our notes filled out right now, that will help us throughout the story to figure out what characterization is in the characters we're studying. So right now, that's what you're doing with that graphic organizer. Alright, so now that you've had some time on your own to figure it out, let's go over what are some ideas of what you could have put down. So looks. What do looks tell us about characterization? Looks help us infer how physical qualities or attributes might add to the personality traits, might add to what someone's actions do. Actions. When an author tells us the character's acting or conflicts, help draw out further personal qualities and traits, because actions speak louder than words, as we said most likely, and we can interpret actions to give us ideas about how that character is developing. Says. This one's pretty basic. Characters interact with other characters. Characters talk. What a character says tells us a great deal about their characterization. We can say tone, mood, how that character sounds, how we infer that character sounds. Thinks. What a character thinks is what a character does not want to tell other characters. So this can help us figure out different qualities of characterization that might not come out in the looks, acts, and says part. So anything along those lines would be great to fill in for that column of the graphic organizer. And now that we've had the basic introduction to characterization, you now know what characterization is. So I'm going to ask you, what is characterization? You can look in your notes and figure that one out. Why is conflict important to characterization? And why is it important to use what the author says and gives us in the text, but then draw out our own inferences and predictions? So characterization is not something that we can just wrap up and say, here's the characterization of this character. We as readers have to be smart readers and really identify ways the text helps us get into what is characterization? How does the author want us to interpret this character? What clues and hints and ideas is the author giving to us? So now that we have the basics of characterization down, we're going to move into our second objective of the lesson, which is using a short story to figure out characterization for particular characters. And we're going to get lots of practice using steel and different graphic organizers so we can actually get an image of what this characterization pattern looks like. So now you're more than prepared to move on to the next part of the lesson.